Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 99. Audio source, WuXiaWorldAudiobook.com. Bizarre game plan. Doors open to the fetus spirit thief. My lady, Xie Lian exclaimed. Lan Cheng's face was blank as a sheet and she couldn't utter a single word. Suddenly, it was like something in her belly exploded, and the abdomen that was flat before swelled into a large ball, almost ripping that long dress apart, and rolls of black smoke were leaking out of the seams. The female ghosts were loosening their hold, but Lan Chong held on to her belly with a death grip, yelling in alarm. Stop messin' around. It was that fetus spirit in her womb that was thrashing about. Hua Cheng said calmly. Gurgur, stand back. It's fine, Xie Lian exclaimed. Lan Chong fell to her knees on the ground, her face twisting with agony. Listen to me. Be good. Just be good. Stop messin' around. Lady Lan Chong, just let it out first. Lan Chong shook her head crazily. No, I will keep him in my womb and raise him well for sure. He won't go out to harm anyone anymore. My lord, please, I beg you, don't take my son away. I've searched for him for centuries. Don't take my son away. Don't hand him to those scoundrels in the heavens. It seemed the ghosts and demons in the ghost city were aware that Xie Lian was of the heaven realm after all. Lan Chong wailed and started rolling on the ground, holding her abdomen as if her belly no longer made part of her body and was instead its own live creature, shrinking at times, swelling at times, and moved all around at times. The black smoke was growing thicker. It must have regained some strength after having recovered some in its mother's womb, and was ready to start trouble again. The crowd of female ghosts had broken up but went back to hold her down, yet they were powerless, and all the other demons on the left clamored, "We got this," and rushed forward to push her down. It was pandemonium, and Xie Lian clenched his fists, shouting, "My lady Lan Chong, the power of the fetus in your belly is much stronger than yours. It can hurt you, but you couldn't bear to hurt it. You can't do anything. It will suck you dry sooner or later. Let it out now." If Lan Chong refused to let go of the thing hidden in her belly herself, she was going to be sucked dry and ripped apart by that cruel and violent fetus spirit sooner or later, which would leave Xie Lian no choice but to personally cut it out himself. Although it might be better than watching her being ripped apart by her own son, but unless there was really no other way, it really wasn't something he wanted to do. He didn't want to do it, and he certainly wouldn't want Hua Cheng to do it for him. However, this female ghost Lan Chong was stubborn as a mule, and even as she wailed in agony, she refused to let that fetus spirit out. This couldn't go on for much longer, so Xie Lian would rather do it himself. He gritted his teeth and cried, "Excuse my imposition." However, when his hand reached for Feng Xin's hilt, Hua Cheng immediately held him down, telling him with a serious voice, "No need." At the same time, a flash of golden light suddenly erupted from the center of her abdomen, its rays stabbing at that crowd of demons and monsters, and they all screamed, fleeing to give her room. What the shit? Xie Lian fixed his eyes on it. And when that golden light died down, the fetus spirit that was desperate to rush out seemed to be fettered by something, and Lan Cheng's abdomen flattened down to its normal form. The thing that fettered it was a belt on her waist. That belt looked normal and indistinct, but when Xie Lian took a good look, he was astonished. Why would something like this be on you? Even if its color had faded from wash, Xie Lian could tell that that belt was something that belonged to the heavens. There were many objects in heaven that were artful spiritual devices. Thus, only in dire circumstances would they show themselves to protect their masters in a moment of urgency. Also, even if the embroidered patterns on it was heavily rubbed off and damaged, Xie Lian could still determine that it must be the golden belt that only heavenly officials could possess. Looking at its make, it was also from one of the upper court. In the heaven realm, to gift a golden belt was a trendy act of elegance, and it possessed a special meaning. If a male official was to gift his belt to another, it was a gesture of affection, and there was no need to further explain what the special meaning would be. Thus, something like a belt would of course not be easily given away, and not easily lost either. Xie Lian gaped. My lady, could it be your child? He trailed off as he suddenly remembered that no matter if this was the lair of evil, to inquire such personal details of a woman in public wasn't a courteous thing to do, so he immediately cut himself off. Lan Chong instantly cried. No, Xie Lian thought, I haven't even said anything, what are you saying? No, too? He asked instead, did you depend on this golden belt to support yourself throughout the past 700-800 years? Hearing this, all the female ghosts were stunned. Holy shit, Lan Chong, that old? Didn't you always say only 300 something? Single quote, quote dot. No, she's even said she was 200 before. Ya falsifyin, age. That fetus spirit had about 700 to 800 years of cultivation, then its mother would naturally be around that age too. However, that female ghost Lan Chong didn't possess that heavy of a grudge. So to be able to stay in the corporeal world for so long as a normal ghost, the golden belt with such immense spiritual powers must have helped her out a great deal. If the father of that fetus spirit was a heavenly official, then it made sense for it to be so vicious. A heavenly official having had an affair with a mortal woman, who knows if he ended up abandoning or neglecting her, but that woman met a violent end, her baby forcibly removed from her womb. Now both mother and son had become of the ghost realm, and that fetus could very well have murdered countless others. No matter what, this affair was no less serious than the affair with Zanji, and it even seemed rather similar. As for how to deal with this, Xie Lian had already decided. He immediately turned to Hua Cheng and said, San Lang, this lady. No need for him to say more, Hua Cheng said. Do what you must. No need to ask me. Xie Lian acquiesced softly. Once receiving permission, he turned to Lan Chong. Just then, all the demons were demanding. Lan Chong, who's the dad to baby? What an outrage. Did he only care for killing but not burial? He only cared to knock ya up but not raise the kid. Just WHO, is it? Ya gotta avenge yourself. Lan Chong gritted her teeth and glared at Xie Lian. Who else can it be? She hadn't said the name, but Xie Lian understood. Come to the heavenly court with me. No. Lan Chong immediately shouted. Of course it was useless for her to say no. Willing or not, Xie Lian must take her away. Xie Lian schooled his expression and said solemnly, this fetus spirit is exceedingly violent. Who knows how much blood is on its hands? The case has become too convoluted, you can't protect it. This must be confronted and reported to the heavenly court. If that heavenly official is an honest one, or if there was some kind of misunderstanding between you, then we can have you and your child be recognized, and have the matter with the child dealt with. If that heavenly official has wronged you or did something even worse, then there's even more reason for you to demand justice. No matter what, this fetus spirit is your son, but also his son. How can anyone else interfere if the father is ignorant of this affair? The demons all thought his speech made sense. Also, if they let Lan Chong take her son to cause a riot in the heavens, then how exciting would that be? The bigger the chaos, the better, even. So they all urged, yes, Lan Chong, what are you afraid of? Go settle or score with that guy. If he won't recognize you, we'll burn down his temples. Xie Lian turned to Hua Cheng. I will make a trip up to the heavenly court this instant and report this affair at once. Lan Chong, however, was still objecting but knew she couldn't stop him. After snapping back from her shock, she suddenly bowed down to Hua Cheng and said, My lord, thank you for your kindness and grace in sheltering me. Xie Lian was taken aback, and she continued. Lan Chong setting fires to Paradise Manor was out of desperation, and broke the rules of Ghost City. I am ever so sorry. Pray my lord won't hold it against me. She had always been a sauntering shrew, but when she opened her mouth now, it was as if she was a different person, making many of the demons and monsters who were familiar with her watch in shock. Hua Cheng, however, still appeared indifferent and said to Xie Lian, Gerger came by in too much of a hurry this time. I'll wait for you to come down again and host you properly next time. Xie Lian nodded, then took Lan Chong and rushed straight to the heavens. As he walked down the main streets of Heavenly Court, he announced in the spirit communication array, Everyone, please do make way to the Great Martial Hall. There's something that needs to be discussed. He exited the array the moment he was done, and didn't waste any time, bringing Lan Chong to the Great Martial Hall. Due to the fact that Lan Chong was a female ghost and couldn't enter the Golden Pavilion, Xie Lian waited outside with her for a moment until Jun Wu himself arrived and gave permission before Lan Chong was allowed in. It didn't take long before all the heavenly officials present in the Heavenly Court made their way to the hall. And when they saw that crude, heavily made-up female ghost that stood clashingly next to Xie Lian, they were all stunned. A black-clad heavenly official strolled into the hall, and when he saw what was in the center of the hall, he paused for a moment. It was Mu Qing. Lan Chong also glanced at him and immediately lowered her head, her lips trembling. Mu Qing, however, didn't show any reaction, and only asked plainly, Your Highness, who is that woman? Hearing the word, Your Highness, Lan Cheng's face changed and looked at Xie Lian, as if remembering something, but wasn't too sure. Just then, both the Wind and Water Masters arrived too. A pair of brothers who looked quite similar to each other, each with their own fans fanning gently, their white robes fluttering, painting a beautiful picture. Shi Qingshan fanned as he spoke. Yes, Temple Master. Why did you bring up a female ghost today? Xie Lian was puzzled. Temple Master? What Temple Master? Of Puqi Shrine. Why the sudden address? Then he realized Shi Qingshan probably meant Temple Master of Qiandeng Temple. He didn't know how to acknowledge the title, and could only pretend he didn't hear. Shi Qingshan, however, was cheerfully pleased. He greeted around, then turned to the ghost. This female ghost Jia has something in her belly. Why do I feel it's? He said as he approached, looking like he wanted to touch. Shi Wudu snapped his fan shut and shouted, Qingshan. Shi Qingshan's hand instantly shrank back, and he tried to justify himself. I just thought there was an aura of evil, and wanted to see if there's something dangerous. Shi Wudu admonished, You're a man, and a heavenly official. This is the Great Martial Hall. How can you do something so disgraceful? Don't turn into a woman either. Even in a woman's form it's equally disgraceful. Change back right this instant. Ling Wen shook his head, folded a stack of documents and reports under his arm, and approached to place his hand on Lan Cheng's belly. After a moment of pause, he dropped his hand and hummed. What a vicious fetus spirit. How many hundreds of years old? About 700 to 800 years, Xie Lian answered. He gave an account of the 2 times he met the fetus spirit, and how the fetus spirit led to finding the female ghost after having harmed pregnant women. He didn't bring up the details of Hua Cheng and the ghost city, and Lan Chong would naturally remain quiet on the subject. After he finished, Xie Lian said, And that was how it came to be. I don't know if that heavenly official is still in this world or still working, or if there's some misunderstanding in all this, whether if he knew. That's why I brought this lady up here. Feng Xin frowned. If there wasn't any misunderstanding and he knew about the mother and child, to let them be without any communication is too irresponsible. Pei Ming crossed his arms and commented leisurely. I completely agree with General Nanyang. This is too irresponsible. Don't know which heavenly colleague this discarded baggage belongs to, but if he's on duty he best come forward himself. Just as he finished, he felt countless eyes on him, and it was a blanket of silence inside the Great Martial Hall. After a moment, Pei Ming said, Do you all have some sort of misunderstanding of me? Shi Qingshan stopped fanning his fan too and commented, I don't think it's a misunderstanding, more like we know you too well. Pei Ming immediately countered, It's not me. Everyone laughed dryly, and even Shi Wudu and Ling Wen didn't look like they were convinced. Pei Ming was growing frustrated and supported his temple, explaining with an earnest voice. I did have some flings with women of the ghost realm before, but I really don't recognize this woman. If those words were taken seriously, it was believable. How could the man himself not know who he had a past with? Pei Ming's promiscuity might have been criticized by many, but he had never denied any affairs, and never denounced anything he'd done. It wasn't like he couldn't afford it. The women who had an affair with him, unless they were like Sanji who no longer wanted to follow him, they were all at least guaranteed a life of riches and care, soaking in wealth and sweetness. If this female ghost truly had a fleeting affair with Pei Ming while alive, she shouldn't have suffered having her womb ripped open, her son robbed, and become a vicious ghost. Besides, Pei Ming had high standards when it came to women. Those who he flirted with were extraordinary in appearance, and he'd also preferred beauties with a natural look. As everyone could see in the hall, Lan Chong had such a heavy layer of makeup on, her real face was indiscernible. Her general looks, class, and behavior were all far different than the chosen lovers Pei Ming usually had, so when he claimed it wasn't him, everyone silently believed somewhat. Only, it was still just silently, and somewhat. With such an occasion to see General Pei get checkmated, how fun was that? And so they stood by and watched them argue with a smile, amused and entertained. At first, Xie Lian also thought the father was more than likely to be Pei Ming. He had a record after all. But watching Pei Ming's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying, so Xie Lian wasn't so certain anymore. He recalled Hua Cheng saying that Pei Ming wasn't a shady man, that there wasn't anything to be afraid of, so after some contemplation, he added. Before, the Lady Lan Chong did ask back the question ambiguously, who else can it be, so I had also assumed. But, since General Pei denies such claims, maybe there's some misunderstanding. It can't be the same person every time after all, so why don't we ask around? Unexpectedly, Lan Chong suddenly spoke up. It's not him. Xie Lian was taken aback and turned to her. Lan Chong repeated, it's not him. Ling Wen commented coolly. What, so it's not? Shi Wudu also politely commented. So it actually isn't. Pei Ming turned to Shi Wudu and Ling Wen. I already said it wasn't. The two of you are adding insult to injury. Just you wait. The heavenly officials were all disappointed, but then became even more excited. After all, Pei Ming had always produced one scandals, so even if it was him, it wasn't anything new. If it wasn't him, however, it meant quite likely there was another male official, present or not, who might be creating a new wave, so how could they not be excited? Earlier at the Ghost City, Lan Chong had hinted clearly that it was Pei Ming, but now she was denying it. Xie Lian could feel something amiss but didn't make a show of it. He inquired, then who is it? Lan Chong stared at him, her eyes unmoving. You. Xie Lian thought she wasn't finished and asked, what about me? I said, that man is you. Lan Chong proclaimed. End chapter.